Hi guys, my name is Daniel Kyle Harris. Welcome to my presentation on school and workplace violence. It's a very broad topic, lots of talking points on here. I'm not going to pretend like I can solve these. I do want to kind of raise some awareness on some issues, maybe get some talking points out there, and kind of see kind of what you guys think about it. So if you would, take a look at this video on this case right here. I want to see how you guys are going to react, how you think you would react if you were in this situation. Pay attention to the guy here in the blue jacket. What's he going to do? When he hears some danger, how do you think he's going to react? Also, watch the lady in the bottom right of your corner here and see how she's going to react when she hears something.
Jättegott.
Finns det ingen parmesan?
Oj, kolla här. Kolla här.
Då var det där en lavin eller?
Ja, den är kontrollerad. Alltså, det är såna jäkla krafter.
Är det safe?
Ja, de vet vad de gör.
Pappa!
Det är ingen fara.
Den där är kontrollerad.
Harry, det är lugnt. Harry!
Now, I bet you if you asked that gentleman how he would react, he would say yes. Beforehand, I would grab all my wife and my kids and I would pick them up and then I would move them all to safety. As we can kind of see in this case, that's not what he did do. And I think the truth is the matter is that we never know how we're going to react in these situations. Sometimes we react very honorably and we do the right thing, and then you'll also find that all of us and sometimes might not have that natural ingrained reaction. Most often when we haven't rehearsed it, rehearsal comes in key to a lot of these things. And if you notice the lady in the bottom right of your picture, the very first second she heard the reports of the explosives going off, she knew something wasn't right. She calmly and coolly got up, grabbed her stuff, and got to safety very quickly. Obviously, she had some kind of plan. She knew something wasn't right, and she was going to take the correct action on that. So the other thing in this case is that is what that individual heard. What if we heard something different? What if we heard sounds like this? Now, some of us have been in situations where we have been shot at, or some of us have been in situations where we just heard rifle fire. Most of you, once you've been shot at, you realize the sounds make a slightly different sound when you hear them, and if they're closer, they're coming directly at you. Truth is we can analyze this a lot and think what we might do if we hear a certain sound. We just need to take action when we hear the first thing that could be a damage for us or cause damage to us, like the lady did in this case right here. Thing is can it happen here? And by me here, it might be wherever you are. And the truth is I think it can happen here. So let's take a look at some of the statistics here in this case. How many mass shootings in the U.S. and the BLS kind of goes back a few years, and these are some data that I have here from 2009 to 2015. And there was 133 mass shootings in that time period, where it had 4+ victims, not counting the shooter. So it's quite a few times in that time period. How regularly do they happen? They happen, my picture is covering up there, but it happens approximately every 3 months. They happen so quickly, what could I realistically do? And the truth is a lot of times if you have a plan, you have plenty of time to do something. Most often, most trainings from most companies are going to tell you to get out of the area, or if you can't get out of the area, then lock in. They'll have a sequence of events you go through, but you generally have plenty of time to do something. Most of the individuals, when they hear something, they have approximately 10 to 15 minutes to take some kind of action. Now, you think about it, if I'm how far away you can get or what good the things you can get behind in solid cover that you can get behind in 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm pretty sure you can get behind some good things. Surely they can tell if someone is unstable enough to do this. And that's kind of a misconception as well. Can't always tell. Only about 11% of the shooters in the U.S. had a known mental illness. In this case, expect the unexpected. So there's some things that you can think about there. Kind of a breakdown of some of the study in this area. So we had a very large percentage of these incidents that had happened in businesses that were open to the public. So here we have commerce in this area, and then amongst commerce, I have business open to the public traffic. Then I have businesses closed to public traffic. In this case, think of just a business that has no doors, no barricades, no locks, no IntelliCard access or something screening you out. In this case here, where businesses are closed to pedestrian traffic, these are businesses where they have locked doors or something to prevent the public from getting in. Then over here, we have a very small percentage of malls. So the largest percentage of these shootings happened in an area that had commerce of some kind going on. The second largest function was some kind of education, schools pre-K to 12, and then that was about 16.9% or 27. And then we had institutions of higher education or learning. Then down next comes the government, and then we are at 11 or 6.9, and the military way down at 3.1. Now, when you listen to the media, these two right here, the education and the government, are the more sensational. That's kind of what you hear a little bit more of. When we hear it happen at those places, it kind of tugs on our heartstrings, and it gets us thinking a little bit more and feeling a little sorry for them and get a lot more national attention. A lot of times when it happens in business, it'll make the news for, I don't know, a couple of days, and then we kind of move on and go about the things. We don't feel as sorry for them there for whatever reason it might be. Some other areas where we had them, very small percentage: healthcare facilities, houses of worship, some residences, very small. Open spaces, that was probably one of the larger areas again of this, but still smaller than the commerce. So that was an FBI breakdown of 160 between 2000 and 2013. So I'm kind of making the assumption that schools, they really are workplaces, at least for the teachers there always. And in reality, when you look at some of the reasons why these are happening, it's going to be the same way for the students as well. Most of the time when you had a shooter that came from one of these locations, the shooter felt isolated for whatever reason. Didn't feel like he was part of the pack. They were part of the pack. Didn't feel like the mainstream appreciated them. And in turn, they felt mistreated. They felt like everybody else had it better than them, and these people felt like, and maybe in some cases rightfully so, that they didn't get treated the way they deserved. Inequitable discipline. If you feel like you do something and you just get totally disciplined for it, whereas somebody else did something and they didn't get disciplined for it as much, that's going to start, making you feel mistreated as well. And in the end, a lot of these, they're looking for revenge in these cases. So something that they were possibly looking for. Now, a lot of agencies don't really want to get into profiling students, and that's understandable. Because you get in, you profile a student, and all of a sudden they fit this mold, well, then you're going to push them even further in that direction. So I understand why a lot of agencies wouldn't want to profile students. But there have been, I did find a couple of studies that did profile students and also workers in conditions where they had done this. And a lot of things broke down to the personality of the student. There was some commonalities in the family dynamics of each of these individuals. Again, it kind of goes back to the last slide where they felt like they had been mistreated by one of the others or not treated as fairly. School dynamics, they have a big role in the way some of these students, or where it says school, you can replace that with workplace dynamics. It also had a big role in how these people felt like they were treated. A lot of times in our society, in the United States, we're taught that capitalism is good, and it is for an economic system. Might not be so good for all of our social systems if we keep on translating that rule into social dynamics. For instance, we're taught that you create a business, you produce the best product, you make the most money, and everything is good. But when it comes to social dynamics, that might not be the case. If you are the most popular in school, that's awesome for you, but there's a lot of them out there that are left out in that case. And sometimes if we're not including others in this case, that might be leading to something along this lines that these students felt that they were getting into. Some possible solutions that we might be able to think about. Childhood development kind of ties back to what I was just speaking about, dynamics of the school, the education system that we're in. And I'm not always a fan of everybody getting a trophy or something like that. I do like it when there's a little bit of competition out there, but we probably could ensure that there's some development out there, that it's a little more inclusive. Early intervention, when we do find some people that are exhibiting some signs of the profiling that has been done on them, then get into them as early as possible. The next topic that I have there is accountability. I think it's actually pretty important. A lot of times in businesses, for instance, if a business were to do something that was wrong, say dumping chemicals in the wrong spot, we go back to the cradle of the grave, and everybody that ever had a hand in that is going to pay a little bit and ensure that the site gets cleaned up and pay some penalties. You don't really see that kind of accountability when it comes to other aspects of crime or other aspects of neglect. And I think that in this case, some accountability might drive and end up getting a little bit more early intervention. Diffusion of responsibility. We take our kids and we put them in schools 5 days a week at least. Most of the day when they're out there, the teachers have them. In some cases, many different teachers have them during that period. The parents then kind of look back and say, well, the schools haven't educated my kid this way. And the schools go back and they say, well, the parents are responsible for this. That's a little bit of diffusion of responsibility. And maybe we need to have a situation where accountability is applied to all that were involved in that case and not getting the early intervention that the people needed in that case, not just students, again, workers around you as well. Physical security is a good thing. It has to be a layered approach. What it does is it buys you time. It's always going to be a cat and mouse game. You put up a locked wall, a locked door, someone can get through it. It's going to give you some time for it to get through it, especially if there's two locked doors. They get through one, you hear it, you can start actions then, they get through the other, and then by the time they get back to where you are, you're gone. So physical security is there. It's a cat and mouse game. It has to be layered, and it's going to get you some time. It's usually what you're looking for in that case. The last one I have down there is have a plan. Most of the time, in most of our environments, we don't like to talk about this subject. Now, we'll talk about it amongst our friends when we're sitting at a bar or we're sitting on a ride going somewhere talking to our buddies. We'll talk about it then. But in our professional lives where we don't really know people, we don't always talk about it as much as we normally should. And it is okay to talk about it. And you'll find that usually once you start the conversation, this is something that I have done in my workplace. I start this conversation and people are eager to talk about it. And then they usually feel better after you do it. And then when you have a plan, when you hear that initial sound of the report of the explosion going off and causing an avalanche to come down, you can be that lady in that bottom right corner. And you can pick up your stuff calmly and coolly and get out of there before the actual avalanche comes. And that's all because you had a plan in that case. Again, it's a very complex issue. I'm shooting for about 15 minutes here for upload time. I'm not sure how long I should have gone. but I tried to hit it as quickly as I could and get some good talking points for you. And I don't have all the answers, and not everything that I've said here is all of you will agree with, but there's some good things we can talk about. Thank you for your time, and let me know what you think. Thanks, bye.